Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Poor Richard's Cafe and Star Local Media. Poor Richard's Cafe, Plano's oldest restaurant since 1973. They are open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., serving the three most important meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dessert. It is true Texas home-style cooking made with love and grit. That is Poor Richard's Cafe, located off of Avenue K in Plano. Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I am being joined by Kendrick Johnson and Justin Thomas. Gentlemen, we are, halfway home as far as our playoff baseball and softball coverage goes. We are in the third round now for baseball, fourth round for softball. We have pretty much just as many teams standing as we did at this time last week. We didn't really have the field thin out a whole lot between the last week of playoff action. So nevertheless, let's take stock in the teams that we still have kicking around. We're going to start over in 6A, talking some of the baseball playoffs and two districts that are faring quite well at this juncture of the postseason. You got District 6A and 9A that have three teams that are bound for the third round. A nice little show out for those two districts, and that means you got some district rematches now in the third round, including one over in your neck of the woods, Justin. You have Hebron and Flower Mound. What is your read right now on kind of the Hawks and the Jaguars heading into this ever pivotal third round series?
Well, they're both obviously playing well. Flower Mound, little less work in the second round there. They get the sweep of Mansfield Lake Ridge. They win the first game 9-1 and the second game 5-3. Hebron took on Mansfield High in a pretty wild series. They lost the first game 12-10, come back and win the second game 13-10, and then they finish them off Saturday 7-3 to move on. So for Hebron, this will be their third time in the regional quarter since 2014. Flower Mound's actually made it 6 of the last 8 years, so we're starting to talk about a little bit the pedigree of some of these programs. Yeah, we'll also get into that a little more later when we talk about the other series that I'm going to speak on. But for Flower Mound, they're looking to get back to the regional semis for the first time since they won it all in 2014. Hebron's only actually made it once back in 2005. So if the Hawks are able to pull this one out, it'll match their best season on the baseball diamond ever.
Anything that you take away from those head-to-head meetings during district play?
Well, the first game was pretty close. Flower Mound swept the series. They got the game 1 win 5-3. They had a 5-run inning, and then they kind of took it to them the second game and won 11-1. So obviously they're looking to build on that showing in the regular season. But I don't really put a whole lot of stock in like the regular season series, especially if you can get to 3 games and you have the third starter necessary and stuff. And Hebron's playing pretty well right now, so I certainly wouldn't count them out. It's gonna come down to who hits the ball better, because both of these teams are strong, deep staffs. When you look at Cam Brown and Austin Wallace, Kirk Perry actually got the game 3 win for Hebron in their series. So runs weren't at a premium for the Hawks against Mansfield. So definitely talking, Steve Stone's probably thinking they need to shore up their defense a little more, because I know some miscues in the field led to some unearned runs in those first 2 games against Mansfield. So if they can clean things up in the field, expecting a pretty competitive series here between obviously 2 very familiar teams.
Yeah, we got a district rematch in District 6A, I should say. We have another one over in 9A, Kendrick, between a couple of our schools, Allen and McKinney Boyd. Rubber match, because they split their series during the regular season. In 2 games that took on a very, very different look. You had Boyd, which at the time was the first team in District 9A to defeat Allen. They beat him 2-1 in the first matchup, and then Allen turns around and run rules him in the second game. Albeit that second game played under a little bit of different circumstances. And I think looking at this matchup initially, the big thing is going to be pitching, because McKinney Boyd's number 2 did not pitch during the series during the regular season. Jack Hagan, who there is so you don't really know how to read too much into that 10-0 victory. Maybe if you get to those pitchers that they saw in that game might be the ones that you roll out during game 3 if this series does go that far. But nevertheless, how Allen handles Jack Hagan is going to be very, very an interesting subplot in the series.
That and the little things. I'm not even a cliche guy by any stretch, but whoever fields the ball, whoever pitches, and whoever does not make makes the least mistake should win this series. I expect it to be very intense. I know Boyd looks at it like this is the first time to the regional quarterfinal since 2011.
Wow.
That that this is their team, this is their time. I know they had a bad game in game 1 against Rockwall Heath. They shook it off, came back and gave them the business 13-6 in game 2, and then they won a tough game 3. But their team is mentally tough, and they kind of like got that. I did a Sunday spotlight on Coach Brett Court. He said all the adversity they went through last year has helped them in these win-win games this year, like the 2-1 game. So if the game is close, they have a knack this year. I think in district they were 5-1 in one-run games.
Wow.
So finding ways to get that done. So and Allen was a victim of all that. So they saw all that in person. So that's going to be very crucial to be able to scratch out those wins and make plays. And then the star that stirs the drink, to quote the great Reggie Jackson, is Tyler Collins. This kid is special. He's like one of the top 50 sophomores in the nation. In that perfect or game changer, perfect game. And on Saturday, he got on base 2 times. He scored 2 crucial runs. He's very key to getting that engine going. But it's going to come down to Chad Brown, who, by his standards, had an off game against Rockwall Heath in game 1. I don't expect him to have a bad game back to back. He's a very focused kid. He's going to ULL, and then Jack Hagan matching up. I don't know who Allen's going to throw out, but it's going to be come down to the arms and who can make the least errors.
It's so Allen's kind of approached their pitching staff, different formats for the first 2 rounds. They started off throwing Brett Tanksley in game 1 of their first round series against Naaman Forest, and then through Nate Wadka in game 2. They flipped that around though for the Waco Midway series through Wadka 1 and Tanksley 2. As far as the Jack Hagan subplot, Allen's at least seen him before, because obviously they've been in the same district forever. So you would have to go back though to the district opener in 2018 for the last time that Allen saw Jack Hagan, and they beat Boyd in that game, 4-1. They touched up Hagan for 7 hits, 4 runs, but that was a long time ago. Obviously, it's conceivable that he's gotten better as a pitcher since then. One thing about this series that I'm anxious to see from the Boyd perspective is, can their bats wake up against Allen? Because that is one subplot that has kind of been consistent over these last couple of years. McKinney Boyd in their 2 games against Allen this year totaled 3 hits. Total just 3 hits, including in the 2-1 victory, that they only got 1 hit. Allen walked 2 guys, and then I think it was George McGinnis got a 2-run single or whatnot.
He had a 2-run single in the game 3 on Saturday. He's very clutch, but I agree with you. I think they're going to have to get at least 5 hits a game to have a shot.
Because looking over those numbers, they only struck out 7 times in the series overall, so it's not like they weren't making contact, they just couldn't find holes in the defense. But then you even look back to the year before, Allen won the games in 2018 4-1 and 9-1. So Boyd, for whatever reason, for a couple of years now, has really struggled to hit Allen, period. So that's kind of going to be the onus on the Boyd offense, because I don't think you can win this series if you're just getting 2 to 3 hits a game or whatnot. I think it's we also have the fact that both teams are coming off, they're riding a wave of momentum. They're both coming off what I think it's fair to say are their best wins of the season, with Boyd taking down Rockwall Heath and Allen doing the same to Waco Midway, 2 teams that were ranked in the top 15 of the state in 6A, and both series went the distance. So I don't know if that gives one team the edge over the other, because I do think, like you mentioned, Justin, with going to a game 3, being able to kind of sort out who your guy's going to be for a game 3, knowing they can come through in that spot. I think that matters very big. But you have Allen and Boyd both survived that circumstance. So I don't know if it really gives one team an edge over the other.
I think in 6A you have the all hands on deck versus you have that guy that's ready to roll. Because I know in smaller classifications you can get away with that. Not in 6A, and then the whole pitch count thing comes in. Yeah. This guy only has 20 pitches left. This guy, I know had they came down to it, Chad Brown, Boyd's ace, only had 7 pitches. So but they had a stud left-hander. So if it came to the situation, I'm pretty sure he would have had that one batter. Yeah. So you see all that craziness in the game 3 that you won't see usually because of the rules and the regulations of the pitch count.
Because for a lot of teams, they throw the same guy Tuesday, the same guy Friday. So it's always kind of like a white knuckle affair how you're going to fare in a game 3, because you're throwing out guys that just didn't get a ton of innings during district play and whatnot. And that's kind of that was kind of the story of Allen, how beyond Brett Tanksley, the rest of their rotation was in such flux that now that you're in the playoffs, a lot of those guys are actually kind of performing a little bit better just because they got so much experience, because there just wasn't much consistency in the pitching rotation during the regular season. And you saw that in their game 3 victory over Waco Midway. Allen got shut out in game 2, 7-0, just got absolutely absolutely lit up by midway. They come back 30 minutes later, score 4 runs in the first inning of Game 3, and then just kind of hold serve from there. They end up winning that game 9-6. But you had guys like Sean McVitie, who was their original, their Friday starter when district first began. Then you have a guy like Nick Brackney, who's been used a ton throughout the season, out of the bullpen. So there's plenty of experience within that pitching rotation. And but yeah, like I said, I think, like you said, Kendrick, it does feel like it's a very evenly matched series that's going to boil down to just the usual cliches of just execution, pitching, defense, who commits less errors and stuff like that. One thing, Allen's going to have probably a bigger crowd than expected for at least Game 2 of this series, because they decided to move the football team's spring game, which was originally going to be played Thursday, which would have been the same night as Game 2. They've moved the football team's spring game to Tuesday night in an effort to increase support for the baseball team in their series against Boyd. So obviously, yes, with this being two schools that are only 15 minutes apart or whatnot, it's going to be a very nearby series. You have Game 1 is going to be Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. at Allen. Game 2 will be Thursday, 7:30 p.m. at Boyd, and then if necessary, Friday, 7:30 p.m. at McKinney North. Let's look at Justin, the other matchup that you got. Another matchup between teams that are certainly not lacking in familiarity. Is Marcus and Southlake a rematch of last year's regional final?
Yes, Whoa. It was. Real quick, I guess I should go back and give the game information on the Flower Mound Hebron series.
Go for it.
Game 1 is going to be 7 at Highland Park on Thursday. Game 2, 7 at Irving on Friday, and then Game 3, if needed, Saturday, 4 o'clock at Dallas Baptist.
Man, they moving around.
Yeah,
they are jumping.
That's very rare. That's old school right there. 3 different locations.
Yeah, so Marcus and Southlake, that's the other series we're going to get into. Like you said, a rematch of the Region 1 finals last year that the Dragons won on their way to the state championship. They're going to do home and home for the first 2. Game 1 Thursday at Marcus, 7:30. Game 2 Friday at Southlake, 7:30. And if they need a third game, it's going to be Saturday at 1 o'clock at Grand Prairie.
Okay.
Both these teams are coming off pretty impressive performances in the area around. Marcus sweeps Waxahachie. They win 9-0 and 9-4. Carroll sweeps Richardson Pierce 11-1 and 12-2. So not a lot of drama in their second round series. I mentioned earlier, talking about Flower Mound in the regional quarters for the 6th time in 8 years. Carroll's in it for the 8th time in 9 years.
Jeez.
Marcus is in it for the 5th time in 7 years. Carroll's also made the regional semis 6 of the last 7 years. Marcus has been there 4 of the last 6 years. So 2 programs that are very familiar with being in this spot in the postseason.
Probably make a case these are the 2 best programs in Region 1 over that span.
Flower Mound has a state title as well. Might have something to say about that. But between those 2 schools and you're always trying to pit Flower Mound and Marcus against each other, aren't you?
Man. Absolutely. We'll have to draw that battle line in the sand between those 2.
But yeah, definitely between those 2 teams and Flower Mound, probably 3 of the better programs in the area over the past, certainly the last decade or so. But really interested to see how this one shakes out. Marcus has, possibly one of the best 2-man rotations in the area with Blake Mayfield and Tyler Morgan. Blake Mayfield's really pitching well lately. He absolutely dominated Waxahachie. 6 2/3, 1 hit, no runs, 15 strikeouts.
It's pretty good.
He also turned around and went 3 for 4 at the plate with an RBI. So, he was the MVP last year. Has had another strong season, but hit the ball well all year. But he's really come into his own pitching down the second half of the district. And then obviously Tyler Morgan's pitched a complete game in the Game 2 win. So nice 1-2 combination there. We'll see how they stack up against the Dragons, though. They seem to.
They just reload, man. They lost a ton from that state title team and didn't miss a beat.
I feel like they lost 20 seniors or something from the team.
That's reload over there.
Here they are, right back here in the regional quarterfinals again. So
something like 3 starters they had coming back from that team, and it's just they don't miss a beat.
They do have a couple pitchers that were key players 2 years ago that were injured last year. Cutter Sipple's one of them, and he's dynamite. So he's
with a name like that, how could you not be?
He's back healthy this year, so he was a key pitcher for them his sophomore year, and now he's back for his senior year. So this should be a fun series. I'm looking forward to it. I think I'm going to be out there in Southlake for Game 2 there.
The other series that we have still kicking around over in 6A, Prosper and Rockwall. This series was unique. I don't know if you guys saw this on social media. So here's how they decided the format on this series. So Prosper wanted the series to be played Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Rockwall wanted the series Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So instead of flipping a coin to determine who got their way, they decided to use the total number of runs scored in yesterday's Rangers-Astros game to determine who got the format.
The Astros hit like 18 homers, so I'm guessing the team won.
Well, it was so Rockwall had an even number of total runs.
Oh, okay.
Prosper had an odd number of total runs.
Gotcha.
His final score was 15-5, 20. That's an even number. So Rockwall gets its choice of format. So this series will be played Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I believe, at Wiley High School. Nevertheless, and for this one,
a hotbed. That's McKinney North and Forney girls will be playing for softball in the softball time.
Now, Wiley High School is always a happening time of year at this juncture of the postseason. And this series is going to tell us a lot about Prosper. You look at, they really didn't break much of a sweat the first 2 rounds. They, took care of Lakeview Centennial, took care of Tyler Lee, outscored them by a combined margin of 23-6 in 3 total games played. That's what you'd expect for a team that's been, state ranked among the top 10 just about all year long. Had their way with District 9 6A.
They're salty.
Oh, yeah. And just you look at some of the numbers across the way. Connor Jackson, 3 singles, reached base safely 6 of 9 times. Braden Webb had 3 hits in that series against Tyler Lee. Dalton Davis, 4 hits, 3 runs. Luke Johnson had 3 doubles. They're laying wood to these teams, as you'd expect. Gonna ramp up a little bit more this week, though, with them getting a Rockwall team that is very credentialed when it comes to postseason success. And Rockwall kind of in a unique spot that they've had to win Game 3 in both of their first two round series. Against Copperas Cove in the bi-district round, and then last round in the area playoff round against a Jesuit. And there was even some dramatics in that Game 3 against Jesuit. There was a walk-off finish to beat the Rangers 2-1. It was Jeremy Bomer who singled, and Peyton Adams barely beats out a throw home to give the Yellow Jackets that 2-1 victory over the Rangers. Otherwise, hey, we might have had an all 9-6A regional quarterfinal. Nevertheless, but we'll learn a little bit more about where Prosper stacks up in the big scheme of things, because that's a program that has visions of playing on for at least a couple more weeks, you'd think.
Their swag is to get that chip.
Yep. So lots of 9-6A, lots of 6-6A as far as the regional quarterfinal round for the baseball playoffs go. Still plenty of stuff though over in 5A to talk about, and we will do a quick line change. Bring in Taylor Ragland, bring in Brian Murphy, and we'll keep you here, because you got McKinney schools all over the place still playing, and we will pick that up in just a moment.
Welcome back. We've done a little line change to talk about 5A baseball here. Brian and I have joined Kendrick. You're going to be on a lot of these. You got a lot of teams left in all the classifications, but we're here to talk a little 5A baseball and the teams that we've lost, the teams that are moving on, some in coverage area matchups that we have this week, including one really good one, I think, between Lovejoy and Lone Star, and Lake Dallas, McKinney North. We got a lot of teams still hanging around in the 5A baseball postseason. So I guess we can start. Let's save you and I's conversation about the crossover matchup maybe for a little later. We can start with Lake Dallas. A really good run for the Falcons already, getting through 2 rounds, getting to the regional quarterfinals, beat a good Grapevine team. I was out there for Game 1 of that series. Grapevine looked to be a really solid all-around baseball team. Lake Dallas gets by them, and then Lake Dallas gets by Arlington Heights in a sweep. Doesn't even take 3 games, so they save some of their arms and all that good stuff. So they draw Burleson Centennial, which a common thing for both of my schools this week is they're going to have to go up to, or go up against, I should say, some aces, to put it lightly. Starting with Lake Dallas, Burleson Centennial and Jacob Metter, who a TCU commit, which I should mention this series between Burleson Centennial and Lake Dallas will be at TCU. So we'll see how that affects him getting to pitch in what will be his home yard. But this kid is just a stud for Centennial. It seems like he's kind of led the charge for them all season long. Obviously into the playoffs. I believe he has a no-hitter in the playoffs. I think it was in round number 1. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but
I saw him pitch against Little in Game 1. He had 13 strikeouts.
Yeah.
The only reason he didn't go further than 5 1/3 is because he reached his pitch count.
Right.
Pitch total. They had to be taken out of the game. I thought they were going to take him out mid at bat.
Right.
And then he hung on in that game. And then they also had a guy come in. I'm blanking on his name, but he was a shortstop. Miguel Santos. Santos, I think was his name.
Maybe, yeah.
And he shut it down in relief. But I thought he was going to see some action in Game 2 against Little Elm. They bring in this guy who I did not see in Game 1 at all, Braden Freeman. He went the distance. He pitched a complete game, just gave up 1 run in Game 2 against Little Elm, and they swept them. And so they have 3 horses that they can go to on the mound, including a D1 arm and Jacob Metter. And, I knew this kid was special when I'm sitting there, watching this game, and there's about 9 radar guns.
Oh, yeah.
Every time he throws a pitch. And I saw 93 one of the times.
Yep. Fastball, it sounds like low 90s, especially early in the game. He fades a little bit. I mean, I say fades. His stuff is still really good. But
when he reached 90, or when he reached his pitch count, he was still throwing 91, 92.
Yeah. So
absurd.
Low 90s fastball.
I was impressed, boy. Y'all he's fading.
One breaker.
He was still throwing heat late in the game.
I think he's worked on a changeup. But the theme of that series is going to be, one, can Lake Dallas get to him at all in game number 1? I think that's going to be hugely important if he goes out and shuts them down with Lake Dallas's pitching depth, which is there. They have Ryan Debersmith that they run out as their ace, and he'll throw against Meta. Everybody knows what that matchup is going to be. And then Ben Price has thrown really well in the postseason. Cade McCullum has thrown really well in the postseason. But are those arms going to be able to hold up to what Centennial can offer, especially if they get down 1-0? Does Lake Dallas have the arms to come back and win 2 games in a row? I don't know. Maybe, because like I said, good Grapevine team, good Arlington Heights team. Lake Dallas has found ways to advance thus far. Their offense has looked good. Their arms, especially behind Debersmith and Price and McCullum, have looked really good. But at the same time, Centennial it just proves my point. What I always tell people about the high school baseball playoffs is that it all comes down to the arms you have. There are not a lot of teams out there that are going to score 15 runs a game and just win that way. When you get deeper in the postseason, it always comes down to, what does your stable of arms look like? What does your top starter look like? And Burleson Centennial is obviously no exception. They have, Metter going game 1, dude's an absolute stud. Like we mentioned, D1 level arm easily. Probably had his choice of schools, ended up going pretty local with TCU. And then, a couple arms after him, and that's why they are where they are. That's why Lake Dallas is, where Lake Dallas is, because Debersmith's no schlub. He's not a TCU commit. He's not Jacob Metter, but he's pitched really well all season long. And then, like I mentioned, those 2 arms underneath him. So, I expect a pretty good series. We'll see. I think it's, for Lake Dallas, as it has been throughout the playoffs, it's going to be really important to try to get out and win that game number 1. And this is going to be their tallest order by far, trying to go win number 1 against Jacob Metter. That's going to be a tough ask, but a really good season to this point, and playing really well. Obviously, if you get to the regional quarterfinals and beyond, you've already had a really good season, and everybody's hot, everybody's good. So, we'll see how it goes. I'll probably be out at that one Friday, so I'll miss the Metter Debersmith matchup, but I'll see game 2. But that's pretty much it for the Falcons, man. We'll see how it goes. I think that they're certainly capable, but it's going to take climbing a huge hill in game number 1 with Metter on the other side. So I guess from there we can transition to we'll get to Lovejoy, but we can go to their district bunkmate in McKinney North, and
District champs.
Yep, tied with Lovejoy, but beat them 2-1 in the head-to-head to win that district, and certainly not slowing down in the playoffs, it sounds like.
No, they the Bulldogs doing Bulldog things. They swept Newman Smith after struggling in the first one. I say struggle. They had a tough matchup in the first one, but they're getting the job done. Props to Coach Gaywood and his crew. And the thing about North is, it doesn't matter who they play, they adjust to who they're playing with, and they find a way to get it done. They have a D1 pitcher. He's going to Southern Mississippi in Isaiah Rhodes. He's a guy that's not going to throw the 95, 96, but he can get people out. Last time I checked, this game was about getting people out.
Right.
I want the guy getting people out. I don't need the guy with the arms. I like the 92-mile sliders and
I like
and all that stuff. I like winning. And that's what North does. And then Zach Garza, their number 2. A lot of people, unless you see them play, they sleep on him. He's a very solid number 2, and he's probably being running for utility of the player of the year award, because his bat's ridiculous. He's hit a walk. They play in Wiley East. He hit one of the best walk-offs I've seen. If you go to Twitter, hit a grand slam walk-off to beat Wiley East in a pivotal district game. And top to bottom, they got people. Let's go down the roster. Got Cam Constantine's going to Texas. You got Sean Mercer. The kid plays football and baseball. The kid's a winner. They got a lot of kids that all they do is win, and it shows on there.
Yeah, that who'd you say that number 2 pitcher was?
Zach Garza. So
I saw him pitch against in game 2 against Frisco Heritage a couple weeks ago. And I was sitting there, and I leaned over to the McKinney North guy. I was like, hey, is this the ace? Because he looked like he was throwing some ace stuff.
He's a junior.
Yeah, and he only had one run.
And he has a
going
really
into
good
the
bat.
Yeah, no, that McKinney North is a solid squad. I saw them, like I said, against Heritage. They are a solid squad. They have 2 really good pitchers. You know, that's the recipe to success that we've been talking about for weeks now in the playoffs for baseball. If you have 2 solid pitchers, and then that beef in the middle lineup, Cam Constantine was huge in the game I saw. Man, he's a stud. Like you said, going to Texas, North is a salty squad over there.
The thing about them is they can adjust and they find a way to win. And being in that district, that 10-5A district, we got to go back to them. They find ways to win, and it's showing in the playoffs. The Frisco teams might have more talent than people, but when it counts, who's going to win the game? We see Lovejoy in there. We got McKinney North in there. Who else we got? We got Wiley East in there. But in the playoff sense, I'm very curious to see how it's going to play out. Playing against a team that you very familiar with you and you're familiar with. I don't know how y'all guys think that's going to play out with.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, because that series between Lovejoy that we mentioned and Lone Star, whoever comes out of that will have a pretty good shot. They'll face either Joshua or Corsicana, but a pretty good shot if McKinney North keeps winning at a potential regional final matchup. I mean, we'll see down the road, but
North and Wiley East split.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a good series. So, I definitely think that half of the Region 2 bracket is maybe a little, I don't want to say a little stronger, but I think that we can transition to Lovejoy and Lone Star now.
Big series.
I mean, I talked about last week how Highland Park and Lovejoy could have been a potential the team that's going to come out of that half of Region 2. Yeah. But I think even more so, I could see the winner of this Lone Star and Lovejoy series making the regional final, potentially, advancing further than that. I mean, it has that feel of, this is going to be one of those series that really determines a region and determines who's going to move on. So, I guess we can get into it. I know that I mentioned kind of a theme for my playoff teams that are left, with Lake Dallas having to go up against Metter. Lovejoy is going to have to go up against a pair of arms at Frisco Lone Star. And Ryan, I'll let you pronounce his last name, but they're number 1 over there at Lone Star, who threw a no-hitter and hit for the cycle, right, in last round?
Yeah.
Well, he did a no-hitter and the cycle the same game?
Yeah.
Same game, playoff game. He didn't even know that he had a cycle going. His home run was an inside the park home run. He didn't realize he had a potential cycle going until after he did that. Man, this dude has been lights out for the Rangers. He's an Oklahoma State commit. He's given up 0 runs in 2 playoff outings, including the no-hitter. You also have Dylan De Leon, their number 2. He's given up 1 run in 2 outings this season, or in this postseason. Lone Star has given up just 2 runs total in 4 games. We talked about, you asked me before we came on, how many runs have they scored? Well, they're still putting up about 5 runs a game.
Right.
In the playoffs. That's about what you want in a postseason game. They haven't really, they won game 1 against Denison. Shout out to Denison. I know they love me up there, but Lone Star, man, they have 2 horses on the mound. They haven't even had to use anyone else on the mound. That's how good those 2 guys have been this postseason. Lovejoy is going to have their hands full. I don't know if they faced a 1-2 punch like that so far in this playoffs.
I mean, the thing with Lovejoy is that they have 3 really, really good arms of their own.
Do they have a Ryan Bogus, though?
They don't have a Ryan Bogus. But, I mean, Jordan Yoder, especially against Highland Park, you look at, they swept Highland Park at Globe Life last week, which was, I expected that series to be a lot closer.
Yeah.
I expected it to go 3, but Lovejoy got it done in 2. In game number 1, an 8-2 win for Lovejoy. I think Jordan Yoder, who Lovejoy, that's their number 1. Mm-hmm. I think he had a 1-hitter going into the 6th inning, and then gave up maybe 2 hits in the 6th, but kind of meaningless, a little bit of garbage time and all that good stuff. But just an absolutely dominant performance. He's been dominant all year long. Seems to like the big moment, obviously. Steps up with that performance in game number 1. And then they've transitioned to Luke Stein, filling kind of that number 2 role with Jacob Terwilliger, who I'll interview for the Student Athlete Spotlight coming up in just a few minutes. But him kind of playing more shortstop and being that game number 3 guy if necessary. And Luke Stein, complete game in round number 1. Good enough performance in game 2 against Highland Park. Highland Park, Lovejoy, it's interesting because I talk so much about how important pitching is, and they certainly have a stable of 3 arms that they feel confident, 3 starters, not just 3 arms. Because you look at a team like Lake Dallas, They have Depperschmidt as a starter. They usually start Price game 2, and McCollum can start 2 game 3, but it's more fluid, and you're kind of piecing things together. Yoder, Stein, and Terwilliger are 3 bona fide starters for a series that potentially goes the distance. So, but at the same time, Lovejoy's been scoring runs. They beat Highland Park 8-2 and 11-8. And in that 11-8 game, they were down, I believe, 5-2 or 5-3 at one point, and popped off for like 8 runs in one inning, and really just put that game away. Michael DiFiore hit a home run at Globe Life. I'm sure that was a pretty cool moment for him. So they can hit a little bit too, and that kind of brings me to, like so many of these series, it's all going to be about that game number 1. If Lovejoy can go out and touch up Bogus and earn a victory somehow and scratch out a win, which the dude's thrown a no-hitter and hit for the cycle in the same game in this postseason, so who knows? But at the same time, if they can get to him, if Yoder can throw like he did against Highland Park in game 1 and shut, it might be a game, if Lovejoy wins it 1-0, they consider that absolutely perfect. We did what we needed to do, and now you're going in with a series lead. But same thing can be said for Lone Star. So I think that game number 1 is going to be hugely important. Somebody's going to win with their ace and feel really good about themselves, and somebody's going to need to come back with some other arms, and both teams have those other arms as well. So it's going to be a fun matchup, an interesting one out of John Paul, and one that I said this about the Highland Park series, but I really think, especially with these two teams, it's going to be close. The margins are going to be razor thin with the arms that both teams have, and it's going to be a fun one for sure.
It'll be interesting to see when Coach Frankie of Lone Star rolls out Bogus.
Yeah.
Because in the first series, he threw De Leon in game 1, switched things up, put Bogus in on the mound in game 1 of the second series. No idea what he's going to do this time around. If you can get De Leon to start game 1 and duplicate his first 2 performances, that's a big hole to climb out of, knowing that you have, for Lovejoy, knowing that you have to face Bogus in a game 2 down 1-0. That's tough sledding. So that game 1 is going to be
It's
huge.
tough, though, because you don't want to outthink yourself either.
Yeah.
If you're Lone Star's coach, you don't want to outthink yourself and get beat by Yoder in game 1 because he just outduels De Leon, and then you're like, well, we could have just had our ace against ace.
And because they haven't had to dig into their bullpen yet.
Yep.
And so that could be another thing.
Going on a big stage.
My personal thought is you go power on power and see who wins game number 1 and let it play out. But like you said, he's been known to switch it up a little bit, so we'll see. But
and this deep in the playoffs, we don't realize how big a deal coaching plays.
Oh, absolutely. For sure. Especially with those series.
Coach Jim Gatewood, one of the best strategists of all time. My man's got strategy. He's got to play A, B, C, and D in his life. So regardless of what Wiley East throws out there this weekend, I'm pretty sure North's got a plan to counter that. Like they countered 9-5-8 all season. Yeah.
Wiley East is hot right now, though.
Man.
Wiley East is really hot. They swept Wake.
Y'all got
that was a
beef, man.
surprise, man.
I know we had another podcast with
y'all got beef.
That's the kiss of death. The last 3 weeks in other sports, he said a team just came hot. The next week, they came with that cold L. So that's the kiss of death. He said something.
You're welcome, McKinney North. There you go.
Yeah, maybe you're the good luck charm.
Helping y'all out. I know. I feel the love with y'all.
Maybe you're the good luck charm, but we will see. We're definitely going to have some more 5A teams alive after this week, just due to the nature of crossover matchups and a hot McKinney North team.
So we'll be back.
You can't say hot. They've been good all year. You don't get hot and win district titles.
Yep. So we'll see. We'll see who makes it through. Especially that Lovejoy Lone Star series should be a good one. I believe you'll be out at that one on Friday.
Yep.
So we'll have coverage of all this stuff, all the intrigue, all the pitching matchups, and everything that entails, and should be a good weekend of playoff high school baseball. So that'll do it for the 5A portion. I know we're going to transition to softball after this interview that I did with Jacob Terwilliger. So we will see you on the other side for another line change and some softball talk.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
How's it going, everybody? This is Taylor Ragland out here at Lovejoy with Lovejoy baseball senior Jacob Terwilliger. You guys 2 rounds deep in the playoffs, and looking to continue this week against Frisco Lone Star. But head coach Jason Wilson talks a lot about y'all as a group of seniors and how long you guys have been together. So in the last 3 years, as you guys have kind of grown into this year, what are kind of the expectations for this final run, and what kind of attitude and identity have you guys developed?
Well, yeah, like you just said, it's been in the making for a very long time. We've been playing together since sophomores. Like sophomore year, we were a very young group of players just out there playing together, having fun. And then junior year, everybody started to kind of really realize we could could take this to where we need to take it. And we added Luke Stein, who came in. He was a move-in, and that was a really big move-in for us, considering who he is and what he does for us. And I mean, we kind of had a talk with each other senior year. It was like, this is our year. This is what we have to do. We have to go far and do. We owe it to each other and our teammates to really grind it out and do the best that we can possibly do.
You know, being 2 rounds deep in the playoffs now, have you guys kind of established a little bit of a rhythm in the postseason? Now that there's not really the worry of, you know, we don't want to get bounced early, we don't want to go home, and all that kind of stuff. You guys kind of gotten in a rhythm a little bit?
Yeah, sophomore and junior year, it was first round. We were out first round. We lost first round both years, and I think getting over that first round little jitter and that first round against Reedy, that was really big for us, and we definitely have a rhythm going. We step onto the field and we know we're better than the people we're playing. That's the type of attitude you have to have, and that's the type of attitude that we do have. And so we know we're better than Lone Star. So we're gonna go out there and do the same thing we've been doing the past 2 weeks.
You mentioned Luke Stein. You know, his addition, obviously, he's kind of taken over that number 2 role here in the postseason a little bit, and you playing more exclusively at short. But, you know, him and Jordan Yoder and you obviously are a pretty good trio, stable of arms, and you've won a lot of games that way, but your offense has also kind of answered the bell. You know, especially you'll get Highland Park, you know, 11-8, and that kind of comeback, and then the 8-2 victory in the first game. So I feel like it's a team that's kind of built to win in a bunch of different ways.
Yep. Oh, 100%. For most of the year, it was Yoder number 1, I was number 2. It was kind of going that way. And then basically, Coach sat me down with Stein. We were kind of had a talk. He was like, hey, like, we're better when I'm in the defense doing what I do best, and that's playing defense. And Stein can go out there and shove like he normally does because he's mid-80s, got a great arm, good off-speed stuff, and he does what he does. So that gives us the ability for our defense to be more solid at where it needs to be. And then that game 3, if needed, or if I need to come into relief, I'm always there for any of the games and to do what we need to do.
You know, last round, particularly the Highland Park series, people really kind of expected it to be, I think, a little better series, you know, than it was. So, you know, how important was it for you guys to get it done in 2 games and be able to rest that staff a little bit? But also, what do you think kind of gave you guys the leg up and allowed you to kind of do away with them the way that you did?
Well, first game, Jordan Yoder pitched an absolute gem. He was first inning, I think he gave up a triple, and that was it for 6 innings. He was lights out, stellar, and then we just find ways to get base hits, and top to bottom, 1 through 9, we were stroking the ball. Like especially last game. Everybody had a base hit in our lineup. We were down 5-3, but as they got up, they were happy. They were doing their little celebrations, doing what they were doing. But we knew from the very beginning that we had this in the bag, and then they made some mistakes, couple walks, and then we just capitalized and base hit after base hit.
You know, moving forward, obviously Lone Star, you know, you talk about you guys' arms and Yoder in particular, but, you know, with Bogus and De Leon and some of the guys they have, it's going to be a tall task for y'all's offense. So what's kind of y'all's plan and how you plan on attacking kind of that 1-2 that they have?
Well, yeah, we know straight from the jump, big names. I think he was Sports Day High School Player of the Week, hit for the cycle as well. Like he's a very good baseball player, going to Oklahoma State. So that itself just speaks for who he is as a player. So you have to go in respecting him. You can't really take him for granted. But it's going to be a grind. You have to do what you do, capitalize on when we can get base hits, and it's just going to be basically timely hitting. And for his bat, just try to minimize his damage in the lineup and do what we can to best prepare.
I guess the last thing is, you know, obviously you guys have designs on a state championship. You know, you think you're good enough, you think you can make a run, you know, all the way to Austin and take care of it. But, you know, what do you guys feel like you have to do week in and week out to get there kind of one step at a time?
It's most definitely our focus and our mindset. That's going to be the biggest thing for us. Right now we have a mindset that we're better than you, and we're going to go out there and we're going to make you like it, basically. And so that's what we need to do week in, week out. And I believe if we keep doing that, we'll make the run that we need to make and get all the way to state and hopefully play Colleyville and make a statement there.
Absolutely, man. Well, yes, thank you, Jacob. This has been Jacob Terwilliger out here at Lovejoy as the Leopards prepare for Frisco Lone Star in the regional quarterfinals. So that's all. We'll get back to the podcast. But once again, thanks, Jacob.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you for Lovejoy's Jacob Terwilliger for joining us on the podcast here. Obviously, we've made a little change. I have subbed in for Taylor, and we are going to transition to a little Class 5A softball talk alongside Kendrick Johnson and Brian Murphy. guys. We also have some programs rolling on here. So where do you want to get started here?
Well, I'm waiting for you to ring the bell. And we're in the octagon. Are we in the ring? What are we? So I'm about to put on the boxing gloves for Kendrick right here.
Here's
what you got?
Okay,
what you got? Let's get this out of the way first.
Well, I'm doing my job.
I was absent from the podcast last week, so I'm not sure.
We have a recurring theme. This man here, he covers 9-5A. Very talented kids out there.
The all Frisco district, very talented.
I cover the 10-5A district. You got the Norths of the world. You got the Wiley Easts. You got the Dennisons. They matched up in all these sports. We started back in basketball. We went through soccer. We went through volleyball. Now we in softball. He keep acting like every time they show up, oh, it's Frisco, they just gonna sweep through. Hasn't happened yet. Oh, it's Frisco, they gonna win more than the 10-5A. Only happened in soccer. Now we in softball. They were supposed
It didn't happen in basketball?
They supposed to sweep through.
Didn't it happen in basketball?
And next thing I know, we got Frisco Lone Star. Boom, sent home. Courtesy of McKinney North. Frisco Independence district team. Man,
okay, they were supposed to do that. McKinney North won their district. They went undefeated. Of course they're going to beat Lone Star. They were the 4 seed.
But when coming in, though,
and Lone Star won a game.
But coming in, the narrative is Frisco Lone Star, one of the hardest teams in the area. They got these bats, and they sent them packing. Then last week we go Frisco Independence. Oh, they might win a game, but they're not going to win it. They district champs are 9-5A. Not only did they get sent home, they almost got perfect game and got 10-run ruled in game 2. And the people at Northtown tell me, tell that Ryan Murphy guy.
Well, how about you run and go tell them that they're playing Forney this week, and they better get ready for them.
But the disrespect
they're not going to beat Forney.
That to put it in perspective, the Denison people chimed in. Yeah, that Brian Murphy guy. Why is he hating on 10-5A?
Well, okay.
He doesn't know.
I have a message for Denison. I appreciate you listeners up north. It's kind of surprising that we have people from Denison. It's basically Oklahoma listening to the podcast. But my message for you is y'all should have worried about Reedy, because they handed y'all 2 cold L's in a sweep, and now who's still playing in the playoffs? I think it's Reedy and not Denison. But at me next time on Twitter. Love you guys.
And the thing about McKinney North, besides them being talented,
long story short,
they took care of business.
They run ruled Independence.
They shut out 3 of their last 4 opponents. They're rolling, and the key to them is they're getting solid pitching from Reagan Clefley. Shout out to her. She was like out away from.
Is she the only pitcher that's pitched for North all year? And I was doing research.
They don't rotate Caden Durham, but she is the ace.
Yeah.
Ask Highland Park and Independence and Lone Star about her. She ended their season. But I digress. For them to beat Forney, they do have a shot. Regardless of what this man says, they have to keep hitting the ball. They've got 6 hits or more in every game. And if you have bats, it's like being in a boxing fight. If you can knock somebody with 1 punch, you have a shot. They have a shot, regardless of what him and others say. But they got to stay doing what they do and be consistent with the bats, because Forney has an ace. I know she's going to A&M. I think they got another girl that's like going not as high, but D1 and a defending state champion. Yeah. So to be the champ, you got to beat the champ. So North is, and the thing is, they want the smoke. That's the crazy thing about it. They're not like, oh, we don't want that. And they have a routine that they do. Shout out to Olivia Gwynn, their head coach. She say, we do what we do. We have our routine. We're staying with our routine, and we're winning games. And that's all it's about, getting that dub.
So did they settle on a 1 game or 3 game? What
3 games, settled 3 games. I think Forney won the coin toss. All 3 games will be played at Wiley. There's nice facilities out there. And don't be surprised if they're talking about a 3-set thriller. 3 series thriller next weekend.
You know what? McKinney North people, Thursday, I will be at Wiley High School for Prosper's baseball game against Rockwall. So I will be in the vicinity. If y'all want to mosey on over to the baseball field, or when y'all get swept and run ruled, y'all's game is going to be over real quick. I'll be over there watching Prosper versus Rockwall baseball. Y'all can say hello then.
All right, well, expect fireworks on Thursday and out there in Wiley.
I'm just kidding, but I will be there. But
all right, so we'll transfer over to Region 1 here, where we have a couple teams that maybe are lining up for a little district rematch in the regional finals, depending on what happens this weekend. So we have the Colony and Little Elm moving on. The Colony is going to draw Abilene Wiley out in a city I don't really know of, Grayford or something.
Oh, that's out there. That's west.
About an hour 45 west.
It's a ways away.
So not sure how that got on the map in terms of a location, but I guess it's just a midway point between Colony and Abilene there. So, and then what do you have going on with Little Elm?
Little Elm in the regional tournament for the first time ever.
Really?
In softball. So big shout out to them. Lauren Lucas, Coach Jill Miller, and that crew doing some big things. They play El Paso.
They're going to be doing some traveling as well, huh?
I mean, they're going to play in Lubbock. 1 game playoff.
1 game.
Thursday night. Yeah, for all the marbles.
Thursday too, huh?
Yeah. So sorry I can't make it. But yeah, no, definitely. If they win that game, and I expect the Colony to take care of business in their series, we would get the Colony versus Little Elm in the regional final. How awesome would that be?
Yeah.
But not sure if Little Elm could pull it off.
Looking at the rankings, El Paso Chapin, I guess that's how you say it. They come in at number
studs.
5, so they're a ranked team. The Colony's number 6.
You got to think Little Elm won the toss, and they're like, hey, let's just
do a 1 game.
Yeah, let's put our trust in Lauren Lucas and see what we can do.
I think I'm neutral in this one. At the end of the day, the reason the Colony's going to win is they got the championship pedigree, and they got Jada Coleman.
And they're loaded.
I got Jada Coleman, and Little Elm don't.
Well, we can get to that matchup next week if it comes to fruition. So, but first, Colony's going to have to take care of Abilene Wiley. They're coming off a nice sweep, doubleheader, 1-game doubleheader sweep of Boswell, who was state ranked earlier in the season. So, pretty quality opponent. The Colony gives up 2 runs in the first inning of game 1, and then Carly Charles takes over. She doesn't give up a run the rest of the way, shuts them out the last 6 innings of game 1, and then shuts them out for 5 innings of a run rule game 2. They took that second one, 11-0. You mentioned Jada Coleman.
If you're a softball fan, you got to see this lady play. She's special.
2 games, she scores 5 runs. She has 5 stolen bases. She hits a homer.
It's like 50 on the year. Is she over 50?
Steals? Oh, she's got to be, yeah. I think she was 40-something coming into the playoffs.
What can she not do?
I don't know, but she made a couple of really nice plays in the hole at shortstop, left-handed shortstop. So she did it all. She got walked, actually, her first 3 times in the first game and then flew out to deep left. I guess that got under her skin a little bit because she made sure she got a hold of it the second game and took it all the way out of the park. But they had Jody Duncan, Michelle Tillepaw had very good series, and then I already mentioned Carly just dominated. She had 13 strikeouts in the first game, then starts to switch up her pitches a little bit. Only struck out 2 in the second game, but 11-0.
That's the best thing about the Colony. As great as Jada is, they got like 5 or 6 other D1ers that can get you.
Yeah, Carly's going to Iowa State. J.C. Hamlin's Texas Tech.
So we're talking about big trouble right there.
They don't even have Coco Madison Hirsch, who's Kansas, who's one of the most prolific power hitters in the area. So they've been doing all this without her. And like I said,
going to come back for in the playoffs?
It doesn't look like it. I mean, it's been a case by week scenario, and we still haven't seen her even hit yet. So we'll see.
I know there's still 2 more rounds to go before this would happen. But how much fun would the Colony against Forney be in the state tournament? That would be awesome.
The last 2 state champs
that would be awesome.
Eliminated each other in their runs to state the last 2 years. So that would be cool. But yeah, so we'll see what's coming up there. Colony is rolling pretty good.
You just disrespected McKinney North and all the in between, man. He still hadn't got the memo.
I'm trying not to disrespect Little Elm because they'd maybe play Little Elm if they get past their
Real quick, shout out to Carly Charles also. She got her 6,000th career strikeout in that series.
6,000.
So, yeah, 6,000 strikeouts.
I didn't even know that was possible.
6,000.
You said 6,000?
600? 600.
I
did say 6,000. 600.
I was like, whoa, dude.
I thought I was saying twice. I wouldn't try to trap him.
Yeah,
like,
that's
600 is still a lot.
Yeah, that's more than Nolan Ryan in the career.
600 career strikeout.
600, that's still a lot.
Yeah, I know you're a numbers analytics guy. Kenzie Cackley had 497 this year.
Are you serious?
This year.
My gosh.
Yeah, that's a lot. So yeah, that's what we got coming up in softball this week. Anything else you guys wanted to touch on? Or?
You just became Carly Charles' best friend.
Yeah, scouts her.
Like, whoa. No, that's about it. I'm surprised me and Kendrick didn't throw blows, but maybe next week.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on the podcast this week. You can check us later in the week where we start.
At Brian Murphy. Dash, my bad. Dash.
Underscore.
Check us later in the week. We'll start touching on some spring football content going on. Everybody's on the practice field getting ready for fall camp coming up. Some spring games going on this week, so we'll look at some storylines on the gridiron here coming up later in the week. For Kendrick and Brian, I'm Justin. Thanks for joining us.